interviewed?
Yeah, but not before. Well, yeah, I have when I was really young.
And did you ever read what they wrote about it?
Yeah.
Was it weird?
It was weird.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Elena and I came to a tipping point a couple of weeks ago. So our first question is, obviously, tipping point was based on circles and kind of Buddhism and how it linked into that and everything else. So what prompted that idea and what was the intention of the piece?
Good question. Big question. The idea came from, we wanted to make a show in the round. We'd never made a show in the round. And obviously that's a huge thing for circus, because a lot of circus shows traditionally were in the round. And we have tended to make shows that have gone into theatres, that's sort of been our route. And then occasionally they'll get booked to go into big tops at circus festivals. But we really wanted to make something that would sit in a big top and was basically for big tops, but could also be in theatres. So that was the starting point. There were other starting points as well, but that was one of them. And so then we did a lot of research into circles and into being in the round and what that was. So one of the things was, so there's an Enzo circle where you try and draw a perfect circle in one brushstroke. And it's a sort of meditation on perfection, really, because it's an impossible thing to do. And then there are, in paganism, quite often you'll cast spells on Wiccan magic. You cast spells by making a circle in salt or chalk, and the idea is that it contains the magic that then happens inside. So it's at once a protection, but it's also like a safe space where you can call things up and kind of experiment with the edges of things. And I think every single human culture has had some sort of performance or ritual that's happened in a circle, which is also a very interesting thing. That's really interesting. And there is something very, even if you put that research aside, there's something about watching a show in the rounds that is so completely different, because you're watching the performers, but you're also watching the audience on the other side of the circle and seeing what their reaction is. And I think all of that stuff is linked. So something being a meditation, or something being a safe place, but also a place where you kind of tussle with edgy things that are enclosed. I think all those things link in. So then we looked, having had that starting point, we looked at what would be a really interesting piece of equipment to complement it. So we came up with poles that
Quite stark, isn't it, compared to
quite stark to a circle and puncture it. But also if you hang a pole from the middle or at any point, it describes a circle. So they make circles, even though they're the opposite. They quite often create circles. And then the other thing, that they could lean out into the audience, and that they could tip, and that they could be quite hard things, like you said, but also uncontrollable. So there was an idea of sort of order and form, but also chaos and things that are out of control and aren't contained and can sort of explode. There's also the element of the chalk and the salt, which is also a more sort of chaotic element to play with. Out of that order, there's a bit of like, it gets everywhere and it fills the air. It's something that's a bit less clean or stark.
There was the show was pretty much without any speech, and I was wondering if that was an intention.
When we started making work, Alex Taylor and I, we didn't put speech in our shows as a choice, partly because we felt that we weren't very good at it. That was one of the reasons, that it was the kind of that thing of being really expressive physically and then suddenly talking and it going, oh, and being a bit awkward. And there was also a theory that we had that was that when you watch movement, and I think when you listen to music, you process it not in a very cognitive, you don't use the part of your brain that processes language. You're processing it with other parts of your brain, and there's a very interesting thing about mirror neurons when you're watching something swing, that your brain, or watching somebody exert some kind of physical thing, your body responds to it, but actually neurologically you do the same thing as it. So it is actually triggering things internally. And we were quite interested in what emotions and thoughts came out of the purely physical. And sometimes we felt that when language entered the room, it sort of ground meaning very much. And things we enjoyed the ambiguity of the physical. I've actually changed my mind about that recently.
What's your new
well, it's just that I've been studying more storytelling. And the oral storytelling tradition, which is very different to acting and reading from a text. It's a very different way of being, and I think it's quite a similar way of performing that circus performers perform, in that you're still yourself, and you can take on other characters in the story, but there's a sort of honesty, like I'm here talking to you about it, that I think is similar to the play that I'm interested in with the circus performer, creating metaphors and images in other worlds, but still kind of being them, there's still being a level of reality of them being themselves within it. And I think there are ways in which you can use language that is, I think, I've got more confident that it could be more ambiguous and less grounding, and that you could use it in a way that the body works. So I think looking at how to layer those things is something I'm more interested in doing in the future. In Tipping Point was, we did have a more chat, but it just worked better, actually, keeping it simpler. It was just the stuff that when we tried things out, we did have a whole bit with people whispering into poles into people's ears in the audience and telling each other stories, and it felt like it was something different and not strong enough to keep.
How much space do you allow for improvisation in performance, and how do you deal with it? Because obviously there were some parts in Tipping Point where you think, no, that has to be improvisation, and you're not quite sure if you've either just meticulously planned it or...
There's some things that are games, like the bit with the swimming path, that blind man buff through the swinging path. So that's a game, so in a way always improvised. And we know the order of who will go, but then whatever happens in that game is a game. So you have the freedom. There's a part where Emily is out of control on the poles. Do you remember that? That's improvised, in that there's various things they found and they try and find them, but it's improvised. I'm quite interested in having as much improvisation as possible. Where it's helpful, but over time some things it's kind of more helpful to set the script in a way, to set the movement, but then allow the timing of that, or the breath of that, or the reaction of that to be new. We try now. In our early shows we were much more fixed, and we literally choreographed looks and reactions, and they're a bit more clowning in that way. They're like, no, not clowning. Just the nature of them is they're really precise. This one's looser, which I'm interested in for that show. So it's partly.
Did you think that Circomedia has an influence in your work, or how do you think?
Massively. We're quite. We often talk about Circomedia when we go around and when we're interviewed and things. And it was huge because when we came, the tagline, which I think has changed, was a theatre school for circus performers or a circus school for theatre performers, and I think now it's broadened in terms of encompassing live art and contemporary dance, like other forms as well, but that feeling that it's looking at the possibilities of circus and where it can be taken, and that it's a free art form, and what do you want to do with it, that was very much here. It really formed the whole way I look at it, so that was huge. And also that thing of being given that you make a piece every week, that thing of like having a creation that you're constantly making work, so you're making quickly, and you're not just sitting and drawing and thinking, you're like trying and going, so there's a lightness and a play with what you make, which I think came from here, I think, and then just the grounding and learning about the Koch, that sort of physical theatre grounding has obviously massively influenced us. So I think it's had a big influence.
So how do the courses of Circomedia prepare you for the industry?
I think that I never wanted to do I've never done a corporate act. And that wasn't my frame of reference. So in terms of like preparing for the industry, that's where a lot of the work is. In terms of the circus industry, I think a lot of the work is there. I think it prepared me to be an artist and to make work. And so when I left, I just was like, that's what I'll do. Yeah. So I made money doing other things. Like I homeschooled, basically home tutored people after school to make money. And I still walked, of course. And that's how I existed for years. And then until I gradually worked out how to make work and fundraise for it and make a company. Yeah. So in a funny way, it sort of didn't prepare me for that sort of industry. I think it's different now because I think it has more of an understanding about that. But I'm very pleased that it prepared me to be an artist.
What advice would you give to any student preparing to work? I suppose the first question is what kind of work do they want to do? I can only really give advice about... Or maybe someone trying to audition.
Yeah, for companies. Oh, that's a good one.
Or what would you look for?
The thing about auditioning is I actually haven't auditioned for very many things myself because I made work and that made my own stuff. I have auditioned for other companies and some of them are successful, some of them have been really awful and I haven't got it. I think the thing I've realised from holding auditions is, and we're doing quite a lot at the moment, funnily enough, is that it's nothing to do with, it's very often you're looking for something specific to serve your piece, and there'll be 10 people in the room, and you could employ any of them depending on what you are making, but you employ that person because they fit this idea you have. And I think it's really hard to leave an audition and not feel dispirited, but there's just no. After holding a few, I was like, because I used to feel like so dispirited, and it's ridiculous to feel dispirited about it because somebody's looking for something specific. That's one thing. And then I also think I have a friend who's an actor and they just do loads and loads and loads and loads of them. And I think the more you do of them, probably the thicker skin you get. And I think an audition in itself is a skill. So you probably learn to be freer and looser and more present in them.
What are your plans for your company at the moment?
Okay.
You have, future plans already for new shows?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately only because I'm just about to write a 5-year business plan, which is like, oh god. So there's a show that started rehearsals on Monday called Threads. Currently, the title might change, but at the moment it's called Threads. It's on a big rocking circle, like a half pipe that rocks, and has a slack rope on it so you can walk on it, and then it can be tipped up and released and become a cord release. And it's an outdoor show. It's our first show just made for outdoors with 3 performers. So that's exciting, that's happening. So there's a cord release performer, a slack rope walker, and a guy who's a dancer and acrobat space. It's the 3 of them. And then Alex, that's Tina, is leading that. Okay. So we've because there's 3 of us that run the company, we sometimes work on different projects to make more work. So Alex and I are starting work in December, some very early R&D on an idea for a show called Generations. The title will change, which is looking at age. Okay. So it'll be an aerialist, a young one, possibly 10 or 11 years old. Alex and I, some in their 60s and 70s. And just looking at the different bodies and the stories and the nature of how relationships change over time. Maybe that it's a grandparent, a parent, and a grandchild, and looking at the different relationships. Nice. So that's the starting point. And there's an opera we were in called Satyagraha by a company called Improbable, Philip Glass opera that's coming back to the Colosseum in January. It's amazing. If you ever want to come see that, it's one of my favourite things I've ever done. It's lovely, it's beautiful, and lots of teaching and directing other people's shows as well. It's another thing we're starting to do more and more of, which is great work, which is lovely to do.
Cool. Okay, then.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you.